Am I live? I think I've done it. Okay. So, if you're out there, this is George. This is day 4, I think, of my takeover of Word Bookstores. If you were with us yesterday, you realized I had no idea what day it is. So, initially, this was just going to be one day. But everyone's been really, really into this, which has been very appreciated by me and hopefully appreciated by all of you and appreciated by the people at Word. And let's just say it's Appreciation Fest. But yeah, so we're coming in like this is day 4. I've been talking to you guys for a whole bunch of time now. Thank you all for joining me. Thanks for lending me some of your time as I, talk about stuff. Weird sounds from off the side there. It's been kind of a learning experience. I've never really done anything like this before. Word's never done anything like this before. We're kind of just making things happen. It's really been a fly by the seat of the pants sort of thing. So we're going to discuss plans for the future at the end of the episode today. There's going to be some more things to talk about. But today I figure I would just start off. Yesterday we were talking a lot about the goddesses Hestia and Artemis. And as has become the tradition here, I actually sent out the call for you, the talented artists watching this program, to send in me your drawings of Artemis and Hestia. And let me tell you, I got a lot of pictures, and they're really good. So because we are the most low-tech, high-tech show on the internet, I'm just going to call up some pictures on my iPad and share some of my favorites that we've gotten with all of you. And if I didn't show yours, it's not that it wasn't one of my favorites. It's just that a lot of people send it to a lot of different spots, and it actually becomes a little bit of wrangling to try to find them all. Like, it's really, like, I'll find it like days later. I'm like, oh, that's a cool one. All right, so for starters, here is a great... Ooh, how's that angle? That's a little bit shiny. Here is a great picture someone drew of Pan. Obviously, we're catching up on stuff from the other day when we did Pan and Hermes together. There's a little bit of a paean to Pan here. I'm going to read it, if I may. Pan, Pan, oh so great. I don't think Syrinx wants a date. Pan, I heard your father was so speedy. His father's Hermes. And you are the opposite of love. Needy. This is from Joseph, who is age 8, showing a lot of wisdom beyond his years about the nature of relationships. For those of you who don't remember, Syrinx was a nymph who, much like the story of Apollo and Daphne, was like pursued by Pan. She pretended to be turned into some reeds in that instance, and that's where he made his Pan pipes from, continuing that disturbing trend of gods making items out of the people that they pursued. Let's see what else we have here. We have, check out this drawing. Make it big. This is a drawing of Hestia. Now, I drew Hestia yesterday. My Hestia has big blank eyes. This Hestia has beautiful, piercing eyes that kind of stare at the picture of you. And once again, there is a poem to go with this one, which I'll read to you now. Hestia, your true form we are not worthy to see. Or perhaps your fiery form is who you were meant to be. Thanks for being an inspiration to me. That's really cool, because we talked yesterday a little bit about the true form of the gods and such. So those are some really cool ones. Unfortunately, I didn't get who recorded that one. So if you're watching now, maybe just tell us if that was you, so we can give you a little bit of a thanks for that amazing drawing of Hestia. You ready for some more? Here is a drawing of Hestia. This is by Eleanor, who is 8 years old. And this is a drawing Eleanor also did of Artemis. 8 years old, that's pretty darn good. Eleanor is actually writing to us all the way from England, which is pretty exciting. So Word is probably not your neighborhood bookstore, but I appreciate very much the support. There's a little funny bit about this one I want to share with you, if I may. Oh, no, I didn't record it. There was a very funny note. Eleanor was impersonating her father, and I didn't write down the note. We'll get to that later, maybe. What else do we have here? Oh, no, the picture's undownloaded. Now, here's some work we have seen from before. This is from Anna, Anna is an immensely talented artist. She's given us pictures of Hermes and of Apollo so far. Here is her Hestia, a beautiful, looks like ink brush drawing. And then check out this deluxe Artemis she gave us. Look at that great shot. Like, remember how I said how Artemis looks like she's always lit by the moon? She literally lit her by the moon. And look at her cute little pug nose. I love this. She's got messy hair. It's perfect. This is like such a great iteration of Artemis. I love this so much. Here we have, oh, this is pretty cool. One of the things I threw out as a challenge yesterday, because I had mentioned how, Hestia's true form, she's wreathed in flame. We don't get to see what she is in my books. What do you think her true form is like? Well, this is a drawing where we have, on one side, we have a picture of Artemis. On the other side, we have a picture of a flamed-on Hestia, and then Hestia as she would look underneath. That's pretty cool, and I'm actually going to be honest here. I was going to give Hestia a different hair color, but after seeing this hair color, I might actually use this one. I don't know. We'll see. Keep an eye out to see what Hestia's hair looks like in Dionysus. Now, here's a cool fact also about this last artist. Turns out, many years ago, at an independent bookstore, I worked with her mom. And she apparently doesn't believe that her mom and I work together because she thinks I'm cool and her mom's not. And I'm here to tell you, I did work with your mom, but your mom wasn't cool even then. Hi, Kate. Check this action out. This is a drawing. Let me make it a little bit bigger. We didn't just get the gods I asked for. They drew not all the gods. They drew 9 gods. They gave us a whole slew of gods. How cool is that? I mean, there's a lot of stuff written there. I can't read everything because that's a lot of text to write. But it's like, it's a matchup of like, some of it's about like how which gods, because we talked about this briefly, which gods would get along with the Norse gods perhaps. It's like different things about their personality. It's really fascinating. I'll probably post this on my Instagram so you can all see it later. We got a few more to show if you're all ready for this. Here is a really adorable picture of Artemis. Look at that. She's got a little bow and arrow that chooses to kill people. I mean, that's not cute, but you know what I'm saying. Great drawing. This is by, man, we didn't get names today. I didn't do a good job of getting down the names. So if you're the person who did this, let me just say, great work. Let me know in the comments if you're watching. This one. Look how cool this is. It's a dancing Artemis. And what you can see, like you probably can't see because it's kind of hard to see in the text. It says, I wish I was outside dancing right now. Because we were talking about how Artemis is a goddess that's on our minds right now. She was the goddess of the outside and of wild places. And a lot of us aren't able to go outside nearly as much as we would like to. If you've been watching, you've probably noticed we've gotten a few things from a young boy named Shiloh.
Someone said that was Milo and Lucy.
Oh, who was it?
Amanda Toronto. Milo and Lucy.
Milo and Lucy did, the last 2 drawings I didn't have the names for were from Milo and Lucy. So, hi, Milo and Lucy. Sorry, I'll do a better job of marking this stuff up. This is from Shiloh, rhymes with Milo. Look at the power of this Hestia. I love this. I love how bold the color is. I love how, this is as soon as I opened this, I laughed. I was so delighted. And speaking of, as has been the case before, let's make sure we have some sound on. Shiloh made a video.
Hestia, she has flames. She's the first one to get eaten by Kronos. She is the first one to get. She is the after one. She is the last one to get thrown up.
I mean, obviously, that's the best thing ever. Again, just like yesterday, I played it. I'm like, oh, so I should just finish now. Because I'm not going to say anything better than Shiloh dancing around a flame. Look at their house. They made a stuffed hearth dancing around, I'm pretty sure with marshmallows and hot dogs, singing about how she was the first eaten and the last to be thrown up. I mean, come on. This is gold. This is gold. My assistant over here can't even lift up her head. She's laughing so hard. Oh, and then that was it. So that was going to go out on, actually. So thank you, everybody. That was amazing. You guys are amazing. I've been having a great time with this. So if you saw yesterday, or if you've seen my Instagram or anything like that, you know that today I promised I was going to be talking. We got a request from a young listener, watcher, viewer, whatever, named Opal. Can you draw Aphrodite? I like Aphrodite. I'm like, hey, I like Aphrodite too. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Aphrodite. Now, I did talk about Aphrodite briefly before. We had a question one of the days, don't remember which day it was, about who was the most powerful goddess. And I actually opined that not only is she the most powerful goddess in her way with the power of love, I think Aphrodite is the most powerful of all the gods. So how do you not talk about that, right? She could make anybody fall in love with anything, like I said. And what's really cool, someone pointed out in the comments, and I didn't even realize this when I did it, Friday, which is today, right? Okay, I'm making sure because I obviously don't know what day it is. Friday is Aphrodite's day. Like, back in ancient Greece and then in ancient Rome, this was the day that they venerated her. If you go to Italy to this day, today is called Venerdì, which means Venus's day. Venus is Aphrodite's name. And when so it's a whole weird Norse thing. They associated Aphrodite with Freya and or Frigga, nobody's sure. But then it became Friday because they were the same sort of goddess. So this is her day. So what a perfect day to speak about Aphrodite. Now, I already touched a lot of those things. She is the most powerful goddess because she has the power of love. She's an unusual goddess among the Olympians because what's fun about the Olympians, one of the reasons why I think the Olympians are so popular still to this day, is that they're just a big, crazy family. And if your family is anything like mine, you're probably a big, crazy family too. Even if there's not a lot of people in your family, it's probably a big, crazy family because families are big and crazy. It's just the way they are, right? So Aphrodite, and most sources at least, she's actually not related by blood to the Olympians. Now, of course, the Olympians don't have blood, whatever, but she is the goddess who married into the family. She's kind of like, in a weird way, the eldest of all the gods that we assume to be the Olympians, but also not at the same time. Basically, when Kronos the Titan overthrew Uranus, the sky, he sliced open the sky with his sickle, and all the power of Uranus came pouring out onto the earth. And then there was the power of, like, it sounds so silly, like it's a Huey Lewis song, but like the power of love, the seed of love in him came out, and that landed in the water, and it just made bubbles. Just sat there for years making bubbles. And after years and years of making bubbles, right? One day, this power of love, this disembodied power of love, decided to give itself a brain. And once it gave itself a brain, it wasn't an it anymore, it was a she. And she was Aphrodite. And Aphrodite, you probably know this because, you guys know your myths really well. Aphrodite means born from sea foam. She creates a body for herself out of bubbles. So as I always like to say to people, Aphrodite is made of literally nothing but love and bubbles. And she creates this perfect, beautiful body for herself. And she goes and meets the Olympians. And you can see this in my book, Aphrodite. And so, in a sense, because she is kind of born out of Uranus, I mean, maybe she is Uranus. Some people will even argue like Uranus is, like she is somehow a reincarnated version of Uranus. So she's actually in many ways older than the Olympians, but she doesn't really have an intelligence. She's not even a she, she's an it. Until that point. When she becomes Aphrodite, it's pretty late in the game. All the Olympians are actually assembled and born, except for the two youngest, Hermes and Dionysus. So she comes onto the scene and she makes an enormous splash, which is maybe like a pun because of bubbles, but that wasn't intentional. And like she has this power. And this is the thing I always like to point out about her. If you look carefully at this cover, check it out. You have the goddesses looking up at Earth. They're not happy because she upsets the power balance. We'll talk about this some other time. We already kind of did talk about that. But Zeus is really not happy looking, which is funny because normally Zeus's behavior when he sees a very attractive goddess or god, he's like, hey, how you doing? And like this time he's like angry. And it's because he recognizes how powerful her power is. And someone like Zeus, whose whole power is like, He wants to be in charge. He loves being in charge. And she could make him fall in love with a turtle or like a rock that she throws off a cliff or anything that's the grossest thing you could think of. She could make Zeus fall in love with it. And he is immediately scared of that. And he marries her off very quickly to his son, Hephaestus. I love Hephaestus. He's probably not the best husband material in the world. I mean, we can talk about that some other time. Before I talk about too much more about Aphrodite, because I could just go on for hours, because I have a lot to say about Aphrodite, I figure I'll draw some Aphrodite. People will often ask me who my favorite of all the gods and goddesses to draw is. It's probably Aphrodite, and there's a few reasons why. Main reason is she has really fun hair. When I start drawing Aphrodite, just draw a big loose curl. Use your whole arm. Don't use just your fingers. Move your whole arm. Now, this is a story that I don't always share, but if you've seen me talk live, sometimes I talk about this. Aphrodite has to be an incredibly beautiful goddess. That's something all the old stories agree on. She is the most beautiful goddess in the world. Now, that depends on your taste and stuff and things like this. It's pretty hard to design someone out of your head who is incredibly beautiful. Like, so beautiful so that they're like a goddess beautiful. And so what I did, when I designed Aphrodite, I had to come up with the most beautiful goddess I could think of, the most beautiful person. So I actually took 2 real live people as my main inspiration for Aphrodite. And when I was drawing this, I had a big drawing board, bigger than this, way bigger. And I had, like, on either side of my desk, I had a picture. If you've ever seen the TV show Modern Family, do you know Sofia Vergara? She plays Gloria. On one side, I had a picture of Gloria from, Modern Family, and the other side I had a picture of Beyonce. And like they were on either side. In the middle, I drew Aphrodite. I'm like, she is them combined. And now I'll finish drawing my Aphrodite. Here's Aphrodite's eyebrow, her eyelid, beautiful eyelashes. She never has to worry about that. If this was in color, her eyes would be the color of the sea. We know that's one of the few details they tell about it specifically. She had eyes the color of the sea, which makes sense because she was born from the sea. Her nose is partially covered by her hair. I'm going to draw her smiling because Aphrodite is pretty much always having a good time. She is the goddess of love. Love is a nice feeling. She brings a lot of happiness into the world. Here's her chin. And then, this is why it's so fun to draw Aphrodite. From this point on, really can't make a mistake. You just got to draw a million bits of hair. So again, loose hand, shake it out, shake it out. Long, beautiful, curly hair. Wavy hair, I guess. And if it goes over and it's all in the wrong spot, it doesn't matter because it's Aphrodite. Her hair can do anything. Then, give her a couple little hearts. Just to show. Maybe, here, there's some bubbles too, because she's made of bubbles. And that's my Aphrodite. So, I hope for Opal and anyone else who wanted to hear about Aphrodite, that was educating and interesting. I did also mention in my promos for this, I'd be talking about a mystery deity, a god or goddess. I was not even being specific about that. I'll give you a second to think of who this guest might be. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about Aries. Now, well, it's probably hard to hear me with this, right? Let me just take a really good strong Aries pose. Can't see my belly anymore. Yeah, the power. I'll take that off now. It's hot under that. Aries. Why am I talking about Aries? Because Aries, let's be honest. We kind of end up dumping pretty hard on Apollo, that Apollo is a creep. Aries is kind of a creep too. He does a lot of stuff where he just murders people. He's literally the god of war. And his name was used like a verb. So Athena is the goddess of war, but she was all about skill and strategy and training and formation. And Ares was the god of just being a lawnmower of people. He was just like, blah, he would just kill everybody in front of him. One of his cult names, they would give him these titles, was Blood Dripping Ares. As I mentioned already, the gods don't have blood. He was literally covered in other people's blood enough that people called him Blood Dripping Ares. He seems like he'd be a real creep, right? So here's, like, why am I talking about him? Don't we want to talk about happier things right now? Well, this is going to get very personal, actually. Because when I was working on Aries' book, I didn't like Aries at first. He was, like, one of the gods who I was like, I just didn't have a strong feeling for him. I thought he was just kind of a mean psychopath. But whenever I do one of my books on Olympians, I spend a lot of time doing research. I read every single old story I could find, every single old myth I could find, and a lot of them are ones that maybe people don't encounter a lot. And I started noticing there was a real interesting trend about Aries, a trend that you might not think about him. There's a lot of myths where Aries is trying to protect his family. Like, the gods have a lot of kids, right? They don't always, like, Zeus especially, the guy's got like 8 billion kids. He doesn't always care about them. And, like, in Aries, like, you can see it on the cover. There's actually a guy he's standing on who is his son who dies, but that's just symbolic. Like, Aries is driven in this book. He's driven to, like, he risks eternal damnation in Tartarus to avenge his mortal son who gets killed in the Trojan War. And it's not the only place we have a story like that. Like, there's a lot of stories, and, like, on almost every Greek city, there would be a hill outside of town that would be the Hill of Ares, where he would have murdered someone who wronged one of his kids, which doesn't sound very nice, but he would have been put on trial by the other gods because he cared so much about his family. And I realized this is the thing about Aries we don't think about, is that Aries really does, he cares about his family. And so I thought that was a really good chance for us to talk a little bit about family, because a lot of us are spending a lot more time with their family than we normally would. And families, of course, we don't get to choose our families. I mean, Aphrodite kind of did. She married into the family. But it's just really interesting and important, I think, to realize that even in a big, crazy family like the Olympians, that even someone who seems like he would be the biggest creep in the world, like Aries, like, family means a lot to him. And so, and plus, call me a sucker, I like these two together. I know that she gets married to Hephaestus, and like I said, Hephaestus maybe isn't the best husband material. He's not a bad guy. I'm a huge Hephaestus fan, right? But I could see that how he shouldn't have been married to her. And a lot of people don't realize this, and, like, I didn't realize this at first, but, like, if you read the Iliad, which is, like, the famous story by Homer, at the time of the Iliad, Aphrodite and Hephaestus are divorced. And these two are in an open relationship at that point. Like, basically, Hephaestus is remarried. He's remarried to one of the Charites named Aglaia. So he's actually in a second marriage. It's much better for him. These two are together. It's much better for them. The whole thing, it's just like, oh, hey, stuff's working out there. So, I don't know. I guess I got kind of real there, but that's what families are. You talk about families in a way, like, families, they're the people you love most. They're the people sometimes you make you go the most crazy. But at the end of the day, you'll do anything for them. Aries will do anything for his family, and that's something I gotta respect, even though he is famous for making bloody piles of people. So, and hopefully you have no one in your family like Aries. So that's, I didn't draw Aries before we finish. I got so emphatic talking about Aries. This is what has been so wonderful about working on a series like Olympians. A god who, going in, I was like, Aries stinks. Now I like Aries so much, I got so worked up talking about him and singing his praises that I forgot to even draw him. May I have my helmet back, please? I think in order to draw Aries, I should really look the part. So, hopefully you can still hear me with this. When I draw Aries, Aries is actually a very handsome god. Arguably the most handsome. Apollo's maybe the most beautiful in terms of, like, the guys. Aries is, like, more of a rugged handsome, right? But he's always wearing this helmet. I'm going to draw him with the helmet. The helmet looks suspiciously like the one I'm wearing. His ears stick out, though mine don't. This is in profile. It's really hot under there. It's probably hard to hear me. Now, I've often thought about, like, why does a god like Aries need to wear armor? Because he's a god. He can't be killed. He can be hurt, but he can heal nearly instantaneously. He just has to basically think about it. It's like, oh, I have all these holes in me, and whoop, they're gone, right? So why does Aries wear a helmet? In my idea, he wears the helmet, honestly, because it looks scary. we kind of expect him to wear the helmet, right? And his helmet is designed to be intimidating. It's got some dings in it, which don't need to be there. It covers his eyes in this scary way. The blades of his helmet come forward. They look like the blades of a spear or a sword. He has, like, the plume on a helmet. Mine is made of plastic bristle. But if this was actually Harry's helmet, it'd be made of, like, horsehair dyed red. And that was also to help identify him on a battlefield. People really aren't looking to Ares for advice on a battlefield. He was more like... in a war, you would just kind of set him in a direction and just point him, and like everything there is just gonna get chopped into little pieces, and like that's the best you can hope for with him. So there's my version of Aries. Oh, we just lost connection for a second. I hope we're back. Nope, we just had a bad moment of connection. I've been noticing there's been like so many people online that like my internet's been pretty bad there. So that's my presentation for today. My talk. I love, once again, as has become the custom, to take a few questions and answers from people who are watching.
We have one. Is Aries a mama's boy?
The first question is Aries a mama's boy? Aries' dad is Zeus. His mom is Hera. I wouldn't say he's a mama's boy. He's probably closer to Hera than he is to Zeus in the Iliad, and it's also a scene that's recounted in Aries. Zeus famously tells Aries he is his most hated child. I mean, to have enough kids that you can have multiple hated children and then for him to be the most is something. But yeah, he's not a fan. But like at least with Hera, he sometimes does stuff to help her out. In some versions of the story we talked about the other day about Apollo and Leto, Apollo and Artemis' mom being chased by agents of Hera. In some versions, Ares does that. He'll do stuff to help his mom out. I wouldn't say he's mama's boy. He's kind of, even though I was saying how he loves his family, I think it applies mostly to his kids. He hangs out with the Olympians. He certainly loves Aphrodite. And weirdly, I do feel like he's a little buddy-buddy with his brother Hephaestus, even though he treats him pretty poorly. But I think he maintains some distance because he does have a bit of a disagreeable nature.
When Aphrodite started the Trojan War, did Ares approve?
Whoa, there's a loaded question. Somebody asked, when Aphrodite started the Trojan War, did Ares approve? First off, we're putting the blame entirely on Aphrodite. This is a long story. I have a lot to say about this one. Man, how do I boil this down? I don't think it's fair to blame Aphrodite. I make this pretty clear in my book, Aphrodite. The entire Trojan War is kind of engineered by Zeus behind the scenes. Zeus may act like a big dummy, and in many ways he is a big dummy. He is extraordinarily cagey and canny when it comes to preserving his power. He saw Aphrodite as a threat to his power, so he did various things that would neuter her power? Let's go with that, yeah. And one of the things he did was he set up a three-way contest over a golden apple, which I'm covering with my finger, between Aphrodite, Hera, and Athena. It was ostensibly framed as a beauty contest, but I'm like, does Athena really care about beauty? She wears a helmet all day. I wore a helmet for 20 seconds and my hair is so sweaty. She doesn't care about the way she looks. It was really a struggle for power, and the fact that she came in out of nowhere and just changed the whole dynamics. And she does win that contest. And she wins that contest by basically promising a prince of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world, her hand in marriage, whose name was Helen. Helen was already married to this dude Menelaus. It became a whole thing. The Trojan War starts. I think Ares did approve, though, yes. Because he's like, yeah, I get to kill more people. That's awesome.
Do you think that Aphrodite would go well with anyone but Ares?
This is a great question, too. Do I think Aphrodite would go well with anyone besides Ares? Yeah, I do, actually. So, there's actually, she and Hermes have a few kids together. There is Hermaphrodite, who is, you can see how the name is both Hermes and Aphrodite. Hermaphrodite is the son/daughter of the two of them. We still to this day call a person or an animal with both sex characteristics a hermaphrodite after Hermaphrodite. And they also, in some versions, Hermes is the father of Eros by Aphrodite. So I think they're good in limited amounts, Hermes and Aphrodite. I think ultimately Hermes is too immature. Aphrodite's going to get tired of him. Honestly, in some ways, she does get along with Hephaestus okay. Like, again, not for the long run. She gets along with most people. She's really good at that. Somebody who I think she'd be really good with, and there's really not a lot of mythic evidence to support them ever having gotten together, Apollo. Like, just if I were to ship them, I'd be like, yeah, her and Apollo would probably get along really well. I think she'd get bored of Apollo. The reason why I think her and Ares work well is because he does have those hidden depths. Like, he seems like a big, dumb murder guy, but like, oh, you're really a softie at heart. And people like that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think she'd get along with a few other people.
Do Aphrodite and Hera ever get along, or Aphrodite and Athena?
Ooh, what a good question. Do Aphrodite and Hera ever get along, or Aphrodite and Athena? One of my favorite relationships to write about in Olympians, so Olympians can be read in any order, but if you do read it in the order the books came out, you see how, I would say at the start, Hera she's cool to Athena. Athena is not her child, but it is Zeus's child. She knows there's some weird stuff with Metis there. We'll talk about that at a future date. But she's not like super hostile towards Athena, but she's not wild about her. As a result of their competition with Aphrodite, you can kind of see how those two goddesses actually come together in a way where they start developing an appreciation for each other. And it kind of, in Aries, there's some pretty cool scenes where they actually team up. When the Trojan War happens, some of the gods fight on the Greek side, and some of the gods fight on the Trojan side. Ares and Aphrodite and Apollo and Artemis and a few others, they fight on the Trojan side. And like Hera and Athena and a few others, they fight on the Greek side. And Hera and Athena, you can see they kind of start enjoying each other's. Like, they kind of start enjoying each other. If you read the Iliad, the actual epic poem, they work together a few times, things I didn't have room to show in Aries, to kind of like sway stuff that happens in the war together. And so it's been fun to write it where I don't think they would hang out and like, just kind of like talk. But I think like if all the gods are hanging out there together holding court, I think they have an understanding with each other and they kind of get each other and they like secretly enjoy each other's shenanigans.
Speaking of Athena, Shiloh has an Athena question.
Oh, it's the Shiloh?
Yeah.
Oh.
Why is she shown with an owl?
Oh, so Shiloh, who we remember from up front, Shiloh had the amazing song and dance routine about Hestia. Why is Athena shown with an owl? For the same reason why to this day we think of owl as a wise creature. I don't know if they are smart. I'm not a bird, an ornithologist? I'm not a bird scientist. I imagine they're pretty smart because they are predators. Predators tend to be smarter than the animals they eat. But since antiquity, owls have been thought of being very wise creatures. And Athena, as the goddess of wisdom, it's an owl an owl is one of her symbols. She's not the only god to have an owl as her symbol. It's been kind of overshadowed in modern days, but one of Hades' symbols was an owl too. His owl was more of a screech owl, which I guess makes a really horrible noise, which is probably why he had that as his owl, like as a symbol. And I think hers is more of like I guess they wouldn't call it a barn owl. I looked this up. Back when I did the book, I actually was very careful to show the type of owl she has on her shoulder is specifically the type of owl she was specifically thought to have as her symbol.
Who is Eros and where was Aries born?
Who was Eros and where was Aries born? Okay, Eros is, you maybe know Eros, I'm sure you certainly know Eros better as Cupid. If you've ever, on Valentine's Day, see the little flying diaper baby with like the arrows and like the wings, that's Eros. His Greek name is Eros. Eros is unquestionably the son of Aphrodite. His fatherhood is a little bit of a mystery. I've had some fun playing with that in my books. I leave little hints as to who I think his father might be. These hints maybe are contradictory to each other. But in some stories, his father is Aries. In some stories, his father is, as I mentioned already, Hermes. In some stories, his father is Hephaestus. And in some stories, weirdly, his dad is kind of Uranus because she's born, when Aphrodite creates herself, she already is pregnant with Eros. And so she gives birth to Eros. So he's kind of like, or maybe it's not even, he's maybe like Aphrodite's the mom and the dad. Maybe he budded off or something. And as to where Aries is born, that's an excellent question. Because I'm like, some of the gods actually have earthly locations where they're born. Hermes is born in Arcadia. Apollo and Artemis are born in Delos. I think Ares is only said to be born on Mount Olympus. But I'm going to do some research into that. Because it might be that he comes from another region. Like, it would make a lot of sense to me in a real basic level if he came from, like, Sparta or something, right? Because of his martial abilities and his... But I don't know. I'm going to look into that.
Would Aphrodite try to make a goddess like Artemis fall in love, or does she respect her decision?
Oh, wow. Did you hear that question? Would Aphrodite try to make a goddess like Artemis fall in love, or does she respect the decision that Artemis made as a child to never have to fall in love? All right, there's no myth that says this, but I did mention in my description of Artemis, there's several goddesses who decided early on to shut themselves off, that they would never fall in love. Artemis, Athena, Hestia, to name a few right off the top of my head. There's a lot of myths where it seems like Artemis is more tempted than the other two. There's not really any myth I could think of where Athena's like, oh, maybe. And Hestia has 4 myths, so it's not going to be with her. But Artemis, there's a lot of stories where there's potential suitors of her. And she's kind of like, maybe. I could see Aphrodite really misjudging a situation and making something happen. And I could see Artemis never forgiving her. Luckily, to the best of my knowledge, that's not a story that's ever occurred. But if anyone wants to write the story, it'd be very interesting, I think.
Do Hephaestus and his new wife have any kids?
Oh, man, good question. Do Hephaestus and his new wife Aglaia have any kids? I don't think so. Hephaestus, maybe has the kid Eros. There's this other guy, Erechtheion, which is a whole weird story, how he has a kid, but that kid's more sort of self-generated. That's a long story, which won't ever be told in Olympians, and it's a hard story to retell. I feel like he doesn't. Okay, no. I'm pretty sure he does, actually. I think he has a couple of, demigod sort of kids. I don't think he has any notable god children. Full-on deities. I think there's a few demigods, maybe even, a king of a certain island claims lineage. It's things like that. My answer on Hephaestus is I feel like he's more interested in creating artificial life than he is in creating, children. Because he has those automatons he creates that are so lifelike that they breathe and things. I feel like he puts more of his creative energy into that than the actual raising of actual children. That being said, dude lives for thousands of years. He's had a few kids.
Would Eros ever shoot Aphrodite?
Would Eros ever shoot Aphrodite? Yes, of course. Eros has shot Aphrodite. The story of it's in some versions of the story of Adonis the Hunter, Eros shoots Aphrodite so that she falls in love with Adonis. There's some other versions there. I think in Eros and Psyche, which is a story that I will hopefully get around to telling one of these days. I think there's a moment where he recounts shooting his mom with an arrow. I'll have to double check on that one. That's a big, long story. But yeah, of course he would. Eros is terrible. All the things I say about, when I'm saying, okay, the question about would Aphrodite do that to Artemis, I'm like, I don't know, maybe in a bad day. Eros would in a second. Eros, even though he does grow up, and you only really see him as a child in the Olympians, but there are stories where he is a full-grown god. He still acts like a child. He doesn't understand the repercussions of his actions.
Would you marry a goddess, and if so, which one?
Whoa, okay. Would I marry a goddess, and if so, which one? Okay. So Athena and Artemis and Hestia are off the table right away, right? I don't think I could handle Aphrodite. Would never want to even deign to marry Hera, because, I mean, you have Zeus as the jealous ex in the background. No, thank you. I don't want to be blown up by lightning bolts. Who else do we have? I mean, just of like the main ones. Demeter. I couldn't handle Demeter. She's too much. Persephone. No, then I get Hades mad at me. I mean, if I go really, really far down the list, like if I find like, you know, like some part of me, I just thought of Ares for a second, the goddess of discord. I'm like, that'd be fun. But like, I'd be dead in like 2 days, like if I'm lucky. So I don't know. Gosh, no. I think a good word of advice, actually, let me be real for a second. Good advice to everybody listening. Never date a god or goddess. Doesn't matter. It's just not, it doesn't end well. The other day, somebody asked me if there's any stories where the nymph comes out better after dating a god. I'm like, no, I don't think there is. And I did some research. I couldn't find any. It's just not a good move. They live forever. They can do anything they want. Doesn't matter how good they are. One day they're going to have a bad day. And something bad's just going to happen.
Somebody suggested maybe one of the muses.
Okay, so perhaps the muses. Like, let's see. You know, maybe, let's see. Of the muses, who... There's, Calliope is all about music. I like music, but not enough to marry someone like that. Then there's, Melpomene is tragedies. No, that would seem like a bad move, right? Who was the one that was history? Cleo. Maybe? Be interesting. She would be able to tell me some cool stuff I always wondered about the past. Maybe, but still. I'm still saying, like, you know, probably just better to steer clear of that whole scene.
Do Aries and Eros get along?
The question is, do Aries and Eros get along? Not a lot of myths where they have a huge amount of interaction, but there is a really interesting theme in art where it's Aries punishing Eros. It's not really classic art. It's not something you see the ancient Greeks or the Romans doing so much. It's something you see more in the Renaissance and then like afterwards in the Baroque period, where there's like pictures of like Ares just like spanking Eros or breaking his bow and arrow and stuff. And yeah, I kind of feel like that would be Ares. Already Ares is like, he's a pretty serious guy. And then, like, he has this, like, kid flitting around. Maybe his kid, maybe not his kid. Doesn't really matter. Who's like, woohoo, woohoo, making people fall in love with stuff, doing things. I feel like Aries has a pretty low tolerance. You know, like the classic, like, grumpy guy sitting in the chair trying to read his newspaper and finally like, that's it, go to your room! Like, that would totally be Aries. But, like, you know, he's terrifying because, like, when Aries yells, it sounds like 10,000 people yelling at once. So it's like this monster god, like, I'm gonna get you! And, like, poor little, I mean, let's just say it's a good thing Eros is wearing a diaper already. So
Does Aries respect Athena?
Oh, does Aries respect Athena? Okay. I don't think he'd admit it, but I think he would because she's beaten him up a few times. And I think that's why. One of my favorite things to do, this was something like I spent most of Olympians was working up to this moment, up in this point. I knew the story of Aries was going to be the gods on either side, and we had the gods who supported the Trojans and the gods who supported the Greeks. And there's a big, and like basically this entire book, Athena's kind of a little bit of a jerk. She's been goading Aries this entire time, and he snaps and he yells. He's like, ah, and he comes at her. And people always ask me, people who haven't read the Iliad or read my books yet, like, who would win in a fight? And I'm like, okay, so if I really came down to it, like, Ares is probably physically stronger than Athena, but it doesn't matter because he's a blunt force. And she's like a ninja, right? So they're grappling, and then she takes his spear. He breaks her spear, and he's going to stab her. And she picks up a mountain and smacks him on the back of the head. So again, maybe he's stronger. She can still pick up mountains, you know? And then she decks him. He's like in the dust. And I think... so up until the point they actually fought, he's probably was like, I could take her, I'm Aries, blah. But then after he got whooped, he's like, maybe respect her a little bit more. My face hurts.
If there was a new planet, what god would you name it after?
Ooh, wow. Okay. So the question was, if there was a new planet, what god would I name it after? So, if you don't know this, most of the planets were named actually in antiquity by the Greeks or the Romans, right? And that's why we have this tradition where we have closest to the sun, we have Mercury, we have then Venus, then we have our planet Earth, which, Gaia. Then there's Mars, then there's, what's after Mars? Jupiter?
Venus?
I already said Venus. Jupiter, and then Saturn. And then we started discovering later other planets. First of those is Neptune. Neptune was not actually known back then, but they continued that tradition, which I support that idea. And then out past Neptune, we had the problematically named either Uranus or Uranus. Come on. This is why we go Greek on my books. We call it Uranos. That's the way they would say it, Uranos. So they had that one. That's a modern thing. It's like, so they really should have known better. And then also Uranus is the whole sky. That's name. I would change that name, right? And then after that, there was poor little Pluto, who's not a planet anymore. Well, I would say like Artemis would seem to be deserving of one, but she's already kind of the moon. Oh, Athena, absolutely. Why does Athena have a planet? It is a crime that Athena doesn't have a planet. Athena.
If you could create a Greek god or goddess, what would it be?
All right. This is a question I get a lot. If I could create a new Greek god or goddess, what would it be? And what's tricky about this, the first thing you have to do when you're engaging in this exercise is try to think of something that exists in our world that didn't exist back then, that would need representation in goddess or god form, right? And beyond that, you have to think of something that with like some logical extrapolation wouldn't already be covered by any of the other gods. I have found it's very tricky to find something that wouldn't be covered, especially by either Hermes or Hephaestus. As we enter into this very tech-savvy world, it seems like most of those things would fall under the auspices of what they do already. But, that being said, I live in New York. I don't have a car. I hope never to have a car. I enjoy not driving places. But there probably should be a god of cars, right? Like, that, again, that probably would fall under either Hephaestus, who made automatons, or fall under Hermes, who is the god of traveling. But maybe it's like a little minor god called like Automatus, or Car Man. And oh, wait, what if he's like a transformer? He's like, oh, okay, I got it. Yeah, the god's name is Optimus Prime, and he could turn into like a Mack truck. And he fights an evil god called Skeletor. I'm close, right? I'm close. I'm almost on this. Okay. God of Wheels. Hey, God of Wheels, that's a good one. Somebody said God of Wheels. I agree. God of Wheel. How do we not have that? That existed back then. Come on. Probably Hermes.
Can you talk?
Oh, wait, it's definitely Hermes. He's the Goodyear tire guy. It's Hermes.
Can you talk a little about Adonis and Aphrodite?
Oh, okay. So Adonis and Aphrodite. Adonis was, you will still sometimes hear old or overly educated people refer to a really gorgeous person as Adonis, right? And Adonis was this hunter who, depending on the version, like I said, he first up, he's gorgeous, super hunk, beautiful. Aphrodite, in some versions, just like, I love him, I want to take him as a lover. In some versions, her little snot-nosed kid Eros is like, I want to cause some trouble for mom. And she shoots him, and anyway, she chases after Adonis. She becomes his lover. And Ares, in most versions, is like super duper jealous. I honestly can't remember now because it's been once I've read my own book, but I think this is actually in Aphrodite. Like I do a really quick encapsulation, but I may have cut it out. And Ares, in most versions of the story, he either turns himself into a giant boar or he sends a giant boar to kill Adonis, and thereby breaking Aphrodite's heart, although she gets over it eventually because, she loves Ares. But it's kind of it's a fun story. There's not a lot to it thematically that isn't covered by other myths, so if it did get into any of my books, it was like a one-page thing. It's a good candidate for if I do that series after I do Olympians, where I would just tell like random stories. It's a good candidate to tell Adonis because he is so well known. And I mean, honestly, it would be kind of cool to draw a dude getting killed by a giant boar. So hey, and it falls into that. It's very similar to I think here it is. Okay, it is in here. You'd have to know the story to get what I'm doing. Here's Aphrodite. Here's Adonis. He's like, oh, you're so pretty. She's like, you're so pretty. And over here, there's like this pig. And it's really, you could tell it's Aries because it's got red eyes and it's colored the same way as him. And he's like, I'm going to make bacon out of that guy. So it's like a little Easter egg cameo. So I've touched on it a little bit. We'll do it. Maybe that'll be one of the stories I tell like when I do another book. 2 more questions, everybody.
Are you going to be talking about Poseidon at all?
Am I going to be talking about Poseidon more? That's a good question to segue into. At the end of this, I'm actually saying this a little bit because I have a little bit of talk about the future of my little takeovers here. So, short answer, yes, but stay tuned to the end to hear more about that.
Last question.
Last question.
If you could be transported back to one ancient site, which would you choose?
Okay, now, the question was if I could be transported back to one ancient site, what site would I choose? Given what we're talking about, I'm assuming we're talking within, like, the Hellenic world, because my first answer would be Colorado 65 million years ago to see a Triceratops. It's probably not what you meant. So, if I could go back to one site within is it mythic antiquity, do we think, or is it actual antiquity?
Pick.
I'm going to go, I would be really fascinated to see Athens at the height of like when Pericles had just instituted democracy, to see like the height of the Greek world, I guess, man, I'm a little bit hazy on my Peloponnese War. I don't know if it happened already or if it was in the midst of it, but to see Athens at the height of its glory, when it was like the height of the Greek world, I would love to see that. I would want to be invisible, because I'm pretty sure if I suddenly popped up looking like this and not speaking Greek and just I'd be murdered almost immediately. I'd want to be invisible, and I'd want to be able to understand Greek so I can tell what was going around me. But yeah, that's what I would probably do. Oh, wait, no. Change that back. I'd go to Olympia, actually, instead, and see the lost statue of Zeus, the famous, it was one of the 7 wonders of the world, because I couldn't see that. Or, no, actually, I'll stick with Athens, because I'll see the statue of Athena that got melted down. There's so many ancient wonders of the world. I don't know. That's a hard question. I'd wish for a million wishes. Okay. So, wow. That was a lot of Q&A. So, this is the point I want to thank once again. What started out as I thought was just a one-day thing where I'd be like taking over for Word. They made the mistake of giving me their password. So I've been doing this all week, but I keep getting phone calls from their owner who's crying and sad and wants the password back. So this is almost the last day I'm going to be doing this. The reason I say almost the last day, because we just decided I'm going to, let me thank Word first. And thanks everybody who has done a lot to support Word, because there's been a lot and we really appreciate that. Word is this amazing independent bookstore here in Brooklyn and across the river in Jersey. And it's just like, I love them and they've done so much for my career, and I want to do anything I can to help them. And here's how you can support Word again. You can buy a gift card. You can purchase books from their website. The VI membership is a great deal if you're somebody who buys a lot of books like me, or if you're just someone who buys books occasionally, you can just become a plain old member. My favorite item is the Word-bound mystery box, which is the one where you basically, they ask you a few questions about your friend. You're like, he loves murdering people and creating wars. And they're like, oh, and they give him a book about Aries. And they put a bunch of other gift items in there, things like puzzles and gifts, like the games and stuff. They have like so much cool stuff at this place. Coloring books, which is actually like a really super fun, cathartic thing to do in times like this. Activity books. They put this all together in this package made with love, and they give it to your friend, and your friend's like, what a thoughtful friend I have. And you're like, you'll never know that it was just Word. So let's thank Word, and there's their website if you want to order anything from them. I didn't think to throw this out, but okay, so here's the future plans, right? Tomorrow, if you watched yesterday, I had no idea what day it was. I thought tomorrow was Friday. Tomorrow is actually Saturday, as it turns out. So tomorrow, I'm going to be doing the story time for Word. I'm going to be reading a few. I do books for younger people. I do picture books as well. I'm going to be doing some picture books. That's going to be taking place at 11 a.m. Eastern time, because we're sitting here in New York. However, I will also, because I had plans for one more day's worth of these, I will also, at 3 p.m., be doing one more of these Olympian talks. Now, don't get sad, because this isn't the end, because there's more. This is exciting plans. Starting on Monday, Sunday's off. Everybody's taking a break. It's been a lot this week. Starting on Monday, I'm going to be here at 3 with my very good friend, Julie Foliano. You should all go check her out. She is on Instagram at Julie Foliano. Foliano is spelled Fogliano. Julie Foliano is a writer of kids' books. We've been friends for years now. And we're going to have a little conversation together. And we're going to talk about Juliano, like I said, is Juliano. Well, that's what she's called now. She's just Juliano. She's an amazing writer, and she's going to be talking a little bit about some of the things she's written, and we're going to kind of talk about how she became a writer. And then I'm handing the torch off to her. Julie's going to be taking over this 3 o'clock spot at Word. And that's, again, why I want to thank Word for supporting me. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in, but don't be sad, because what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to move this over to my Instagram account. So as not to compete with Julie, starting Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I'll be doing this sort of talk on my Instagram, The George O'Connor. So I'll put up stuff that'll be on all my web, all the media stuff. We'll have Word say it too. You can write there. So if you do a picture today, and I hope you do, draw a picture of either Aphrodite, or maybe you want to draw a picture of Aries, or maybe just a goddess or god you haven't seen yet, someone you want to talk about, someone you want to maybe influence me into talking about, like the way Opal did with Aphrodite. And you can still send it to kids. I'm so close to having them all right at the same time. Kids@wordbookstores.com, because we will be doing this one more day here, like I said, Saturday, but then we'll be moving over. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. But please send me your pictures of Aries, of Aphrodite, of whomever you want. And then, we're going to maybe see, like I've said, this is new territory for us. And I've been getting really great feedback. Been talking with Word, because this has been a good partnership. We're exploring the ideas of maybe doing something a little bit more structured than this. This is basically me just kind of gabbing at you guys and answering questions randomly. But we might be doing something that's like a workshop. Maybe something that there's a fee to join in with, like an actual like after school activity sort of workshop that would be done in conjunction with Word to help Word in these hard times. If it's something you might be interested in, like maybe it would be like me showing how to make comics, something like this, like an actual like proper lesson. If this is something you might be interested in, just drop a line. Yeah, this one, right? Kids@wordbookstores.com. Just tell them, like, yeah, we would be totally into the idea of, like, learning more from George. Or from other people, too. Who knows? This is something we're just floating around. We're just trying to do this. But it's just like, we have a lot more time on our hands than we used to. And we want to see, like, this might be a good way to, like, fill some of that time. And for me to get some of my energy out. And for you to get some energy out. And you learn how to make some comics and stuff, too. So, I think that was everything today. And I just got the okay that was. So I will see you all here tomorrow twice. At 11 a.m. Eastern for story time. And then at 3 p.m. Eastern for the last of my Word-hosted Olympians talks. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.